A Chinese woman escapes back to China after drunk driving kills her passenger. Security footage the car sliding sideways and crashing and flipping over. This took place on September 30th in Bellevue, Washington, and there's an international manhunt on the way. It moves what qualify her for the Chinese spy agency. Let's talk about it. Welcome to China Insider, I'm Zhang. A 26-year-old woman named Jenny Ye, or Ting Ye, was driving a Porsche 911 with speed of 94 miles per hour at 4 a.m. in the morning. She was drunk driving, and the car slided past intersections approaching a highway and crashed into a cement barricade and went airborne, killing 2 people. One was her fellow passenger, a 27-year-old man named Bellevue, and he is an employee of TikTok. Now, the other one was a pedestrian. Footage of the Porsche right before it crashed looked like something straight out of an action movie. Information found online suggests that she's 26-year-old, a software engineer working at Apple. And she has a profile page on the Chinese social app called Little Red Book, and she touts herself as a software socialite, whatever that means. Since the incident, however, all of her online profiles have gone private. In her profile, she posted about her luxury life and her pre-owned 2020 Porsche 911, which some allege that she bought for over $100,000. When first responders arrived at the scene, they smelled alcohol from Ye's breath. Her passenger died, likely immediately from the initial impact before the car flipped over. But what transpired since then is even more shocking. Jenny Ye survived the initial crash with non-life-threatening injuries. She was taken to Harborview Medical Center and discharged from the hospital on October 6th, which is about a week later. However, the hospital did not notify the police, but officers noted that they were not required to. Without telling the police, she had the audacity to escape to Vancouver, Canada, a short drive north of the border, and then book a ticket back to China, all within a short period of time as the local police formed a case for the investigation. King County prosecutors has since charged Ye with vehicular homicide and set bail at $2 million. U.S. police are now working to put out an Interpol red notice, which would flag Ye's arrival to any country that shares an extradition treaty with the United States. So not only did she manage to come out of the accident alive, she then refused to give anything to the police, silently left the hospital, and made her way out of the country. Ye was also ordered to turn over her passport and not leave Washington state. So it sounds like some trained special agent. Most people would be freaking out right now under this type of pressure. She, however, according to internet, went to a hot pot restaurant in Vancouver's Richmond area and then went shopping for luxury items before her departure to China. Who the heck would behave like this after killing someone in a car accident? So I swear, if this was a spy movie plot and she's a tasked agent to kill someone, I will believe it. Now that Jenny Ye is under an international manhunt, she will not be able to travel to any country that has an extradition treaty with the United States. China, of course, doesn't. And it gets even worse. Now, the passenger male is not her boyfriend, and according to a screenshot of chat online, it seemed like she lied about the condition of the man after the incident. And the person asked her about Liu, the passenger's whereabouts, and his condition. Jenny Ye lies and says that he's fine. Now, it wasn't until days or weeks after did the family of the man who died find out about their son. And according to people familiar with the passenger, they remember that Liu had always worked very hard, and after completing his undergraduate in China at Xiamen University, he then borrowed money to further his education at the University of Rochester in New York. After graduation, he became a programmer and joined 2 world-renowned companies. And then, of course, he quickly got to repay his loans. Others say that Jenny Ye is an influencer wannabe and a gold digger. People were mainly angry with her for the fact that she didn't seem to care that the guy died, but also there seems to be zero remorse for what she did overall. She simply left for China as if sort of bailing from her crime. Now, many online are discussing why the man got into the car with her in the first place, 4 a.m. in the morning. And some say that's the crazy life of rich Asians, apparently. Anyways, some online are also saying that she should be recruited to join the Ministry of State Security to work as a CCP agent. After all, seeing her skills of escaping the police capture and evading investigation remaining so calm under pressure. Here's one of the scenarios. Quote, "The possibility of doing this was analyzed many years ago with a classmate. Buy a good plane ticket, murder, get on a plane, and leave the country in one fell swoop. There's no time for them to catch you. There are no extradition between the US and China. At the time, we thought that this was impossible, but now it seems it's practical even at the social influencer level. I suggested the establishment of overseas female paratroopers, quote-unquote, team land in the United States on the day, commit the assassination. Whatever the customs officer asks, just say pleasure and relaxation. Obviously, people are joking about this whole thing, but the shocking factors and reality is a little bit different. And it's very complicated, actually. So, although there is no extradition between the US and China, the Chinese judicial authorities still have jurisdiction in this case because, of course, both people, the person dead as well as the driver, they're both Chinese nationals. And so and that's the key here, if the woman has no political backing in China, aka the CCP officials won't step in to ensure that she doesn't face any judicial investigations in China, then the man's family can still pursue legal proceedings in China. Now, the passenger's male parent's pursuit of liability in China requires the cooperation of the United States and its police force. So if the US side is willing to pursue the case as well, which I assume they want to, given the fact that they lay out the Interpol red notice, and that the Chinese side is also willing to work together on it, we may see some international cooperation on this case. And it just heavily depends on what China sees in terms of giving US authorities cross-border assistance. But here's the catch. The female driver involved in the case, even though she is in China, can still remotely hire lawyers in Seattle who will also do everything possible to prevent and delay the transfer of evidence back to China, which seems to make the point that why she would run back to China is essentially to go back to a safe haven. And here's the reason why. Chinese citizens who commit a crime overseas can be criminalized by their own country, but time-wise, there is a bug when it comes to sentencing. According to Chinese criminal law, if it is a prison sentence of said charge to be less than 3 years, China can choose to not pursue domestic charges. In other words, it gets handed over to the foreign country to decide for trial, and the home country, aka in this case China, will not be pursuing it. So how Jenny Ye would appear in a foreign trial? Well, obviously she can't, or she just simply won't. So it always comes down to whether or not China would pursue domestic charges. So even if on paper, right, China says that the United States can pursue it, Chinese authorities will help, they have to be the one that actually decides what the sentencing will be for them, for her at least, and it is less than 3 years for this charge. So given the fact that in reality, China and the United States don't often get along, and the last time a Chinese national was involved in this type of cross-border situation with proceedings, right, Meng Wanzhou, the CFO of Huawei, we saw how that turned out. It turned into a geopolitical showdown. Of course, however, given the nature of this case is a hit-and-run, drunk driving, vehicular homicide, and so on, seems a little bit different. But in the end, in China, if you have money, you can make a lot of things happen. Sentencing less severe, maybe not go to jail, hire the right lawyers, bribe your way through the authorities. She either walks away free or get maybe 1 or 2 years only. It's not a big deal. Which means, apparently, if you commit a crime in the United States and you're Chinese, and you just go back to China, that's where you're going to be safe. Of course, you can't travel globally anymore, but vehicular-related cases are very common in China, and people don't often suffer the consequences that are supposed to be matching the level of crime they committed. There's a common understanding that it's better to kill someone after a car-related incident. For example, if you hit somebody in China, the driver will continue to run them over until the person dies, essentially. The reason is that the laws in China, they don't punish people for criminal charges when it comes to accident involving a person. Only financial compensations are required in these cases. So people often choose whether you have to go through a bunch of lawsuits to try to negotiate the details, but of course, excluding people running over people intentionally, but outside of those cases, it's a matter of compensation. And it turns out you can bribe your way through the judicial system in China. The math goes, it's cheaper to pay a lump sum, for example, $10,000 or $100,000 for the death of the victim versus a lifetime of injury medical expenses. So people then choose to kill the person and pay less instead of having to pay for their injuries for a lifetime. Sounds really twisted, right? But that's the reality. It's a negative cycle that has created this type of situation. It's quite common in China, too, when it comes to vehicular incidents. And of course, the nature of these two types of cases, as we discussed with Jenny Ye and this, is a little bit different. But I just want to highlight the mindset behind that, which is how badly China's environment and laws and how they protect the people who are essentially the perpetrators versus the victim in many of these cases. And so they hold people who are responsible for their crimes when it comes to freedom, when it comes to dissidents, when it comes to trying to, in their words, overthrow the government, but not the people who actually have a lot of money. And so, yeah, that's the reality. Anyways, that's it today for the episode on Jenny Ye, the girl who killed a passenger driving almost 100 miles an hour in Bellevue, Washington. And if you enjoyed the content, leave a like, comment below your thoughts, and subscribe to our channel. All right, that's it for today. The China Insider episode. We'll see you next time.